Hello, everyone. Well, it's a great panel today because I've got the two Bigenerates plus me. In other words, it's a Trigenerate. And of course, James is on the latest credits. We've got obviously Cinnamon who was on the other credits. I can't use them both. So it's like, I'll have to. Should I change the whole joke about the Bigeneration and make it Trigenerate just to make it work? I'll have to think this through. Anyway, welcome to our Wednesday Whovian Symposium on the latest that winds its way into the Who world. By Wednesday, you sometimes think there's nothing new to discuss. Then someone opens their mouth and the show just writes itself. Today is one of those cases in point, and seeing the latest comments from the new companion in Doctor Who about triggering the fans and being woke brought to mind all the other times we've been baited and criticised and mocked and dismissed. And you wonder what is actually going on with the marketing of this show before it even transmits. Lots to ponder. As we gather our thoughts, a reminder of some stellar shows recently on Senssphere, serving all your Whovian needs. We had a slogathon on Sunday. 2 shows. There you go. Take your pick. Who's to blame for the current malaise? Has RTD killed off the viewers after that YouGov poll? And of course, last night I was on again. Am I ever off at the moment? The Man Who Wrote TV. We had the biographer doing an online book launch on the biography of Malcolm Hulke. That's a lovely classic discussion. And you learn a few snippets there, so try all those out. But there is only one show in town today and one topic of conversation in Whovian circles. So let's get the Bigenerates on to express how Whovians across the different ages and generations feel about Dr. Woke and being baited. And what was Varada saying? So let's get them on. Now, my original, you may say, Bigenerate was Cinnamon, fellow compatriot of Middlesbrough. Here he is. Hello, Cinnamon, Bigenerate number 1.
Hello. I have to say, in regarding your idea about the Trigenerates, you want to be careful, otherwise you'll probably give Russell a nosebleed, even just thinking about that.
I know. And of course, you lose the joke if you go from Bigeneration to something completely different. But we'll have to work it out. That's up to me. And of course, to complete the quorum, we've got James. Hello, James.
You're right.
Yep.
How are we doing?
And we do have 3 sets. So me at the top of the pile of the Brady Bunch, Generation X. Below me, Generation Y, Cinnamon. And below that, the hodgepodge mongrel version of the Zennies.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, am I sparking?
Yeah.
At least you two aren't the middle child.
That's it. Yes, it. I like being top of the pile. This is good. I was looking at this the other day. It's a beautiful picture. I love sometimes how comic strips do it, but the whole dialogue is about he's captured all the companions and what do you think, Doctor? I've been doing this for a long time. And I just think, is this where we're up to with season 2, RTD, Chibnall, Moffat, that the show has been well and truly captured, and really they're all just exhibits for them to play with now. So just before we start, Cinnamon, where do you feel on this one? Do you feel as though the show has just been completely, almost crafted in a different way?
Yeah. Simple, 3 letters, 1 answer. Yes. It's a different Doctor Who, whether you like it or not. The current era, it's whether you like it or not, and I've liked a lot of it and disliked a lot of other bits. It is different Doctor Who. Arguably, you couldn't. Again, I think you'd be hard pressed if you were to show somebody who isn't a Doctor Who fan and pick a random story from the Philip Hinchcliffe era, and then another random story from Shooty's season. They're completely quite different things, and that's, I think, a lot of the time the issue is that connective tissue is as always in tandem as it should be.
It doesn't feel it. And just as I come to you, James, to ask the same question about whether you think it's being captured, I'll just say hello. We've got so many people joining us on time today, from Lee Smith, Farsight, Squinty Mint, Paul Mabley, Daz Blue, Simon Mills, Neville, Sunny Waffles, Sir C, I'm keeping my eye out there. Paul Holgate, you would never have seen the likes of Tom Baker or Liz Sladen, he says, dismissing the fans like this. We will discuss all that in a moment. But James, where do you stand? I mean, it's a nice picture, but I am getting to that point. I'm trying my best to resist it, but RTD and the people who were before him as well, they've crafted the show to the point where I just think it's captured by, the message.
Well, yeah, I'm going to pick up on your use of the word crafted, because I think that's exactly the right word. It used to be crafted. It is now cobbled together.
Yeah. I imagine I was careful because I have used the word vandalized before.
I wouldn't have taken issue with that myself.
Yeah. So Farsight is trusting us today. RTD will sweep aside the sense fee and its important quorum of panelists. Well, we will be the resistance. We will fight this. We are the rebellion. Let's see how we go. And I can see Zero Room as well joining the whole quorum of people. Right. So what's the problem? Why have we assembled today? Anything in the universe to discuss? Well, these are the headlines, of course. And by the way, everybody, if you want course 2, this is from the Radio Times, but on the one show tonight in Britain at 7 p.m, they're on. Shooty and Varada are on. So shall we have a look? So yeah, have a look tonight. Anyway, in the meantime, she was interviewed in the Radio Times. There's been a couple of Doctor Who woke references, but I think we're doing the right thing if we're getting comments like that, she said. And then, of course, we're going to pee off so many people is what they were saying when they were messing around in the TARDIS. Now, we're going to, don't worry, get right into that. This all came from the latest Radio Times where, of course, Doctor Who's on the front cover. For some reason, that doesn't look right. I'm not talking about them. I'm just saying it just looks a bit of a cheap cover. I don't like it at all. Who goes there? Has Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor met his match in the new companion? I don't know how many times I get sick of thinking, oh, this companion's going to take him on. We are equals. Belinda's not in awe of this all-powerful being. Hold on, Bigenerates. The Doctor was never an all-powerful being.
Exactly. He's never been powerful. I mean, I saw this whole... Obviously, a lot of this came up from yesterday, or last night, should I say. And I think I even put up a response to it. And I'll read a little bit of it out. Well, I say a little bit, all of it, because it's only short. But I put, right, you say despite... she talks about how it being right thing to do and wokeness being right and just. Yeah. And of course, my response was, right, you say, despite most metrics currently saying the opposite, in fact. Keep dying on this hill, playing to the gallery of toxic fandom, and get your Slay Queen comments while you can, as you'll be nothing more than a blink and miss it companion as the show's future is uncertain. Now, what do I mean by that? Because do you think Varada, as talented as I think she will be, and I think she will go along the way of what other people were saying about the last season, that a lot of the time, or if not the majority of the time, that Millie Gibson outshone the Doctor. I probably imagine that Varada will do the same. But again, we're missing the point. She's going to be here for 8 episodes? The whole point is that it's going to get her home. That's the big story arc, which I kind of actually respect in a way. We're finally getting something a little bit more mundane. It's trying to get her home. Okay, yeah, we've seen it with Tegan, but it's a story arc I can get behind because it's lower stakes. I'm a bit sick of all this.
Talk about lower stakes, Cinnamon. That means he's making Doctor Who a chauffeur, a taxi driver, taxi for Varada. I mean, is that it? He's a bit like the dad who collects you at 3 a.m. from when you've been nightclubbing. That's it.
But obviously you imagine there'll be some force, won't they? That's preventing them or whatever. I'm sure we'll find out. But yeah, of course, I get your point. But I'm sure I'm sure there'll be something stopping them, something so terrible and so frightening. And you see that trailer. I've never been so scared. But you say that every episode, and you say it with a bunch of tears strolling it down your face. But
yeah,
goodness.
James, you were desperately trying to get in there.
Yeah. The tagline from last season was something like "Your interstellar joyride," wasn't it?
Cosmic joyride.
I know, Brendan, you didn't like that tagline very much.
Now it's like your universe Uber.
Yeah, I mean, last year I did. I mean, Cinnamon remembers I went mad about the Joyride. I mean, it just sounds so, it sounded American actually. So, Cosmic Joyride. And again, it just sounds like play. And now it's, you know, he has to get her home, but basically lots of obstacles are thrown in the way. I mean, God, that must have taken him, what, a second to think of that plot? Gosh. And again, a bit like the Toy Maker, as we were hinting at, all RTD's done is, oh, I've got to write 2 seasons. Right, the first season, she's trying to find a man and who dropped her off in a basket like Moses. Right, season 2, who's going to pick her up in a taxi and get her home? Oh, God, wouldn't it be a fantastic wheeze if lots of different obstacles and speed ramps were in the way? And then that milks the whole season. Oh, aren't I a clever little RTD? Do you know what I'm going to do now? Season 3. Now, this is when your vehicle doesn't work and it has to go for an MOT. Do you know what? It's like he's genius.
I mean, this has kind of been a common thing with Russell, hasn't it? With his particular storylines, even going back to the 2000s, he had Bad Wolf dropped and name dropped everywhere. Okay, it worked for the first time, and then the second time they did the exact same thing again with, oh, it's not Bad Wolf this time, it's Torchwood. Okay, and we'll do something, you know, maybe a little bit different. We'll have instead of having Torchwood dispersed around the whole episodes, we'll have Harold Saxon. This information comes from Harold Saxon himself. We'll have that dotted around everywhere. And again, with season 4, it was a slightly bit different. You know, not like before. You know, it wasn't the same thing again. It wasn't like there was constant talk about the bees disappearing and having that dispersed around the different episodes. I mean, I will say, at least they mixed up a little bit and having Rose appear in the background for a quick cameo or 2. But yeah, you know, it's either you got one end of it or the other end of it, because then you had Moffat. It was sometimes a little bit too clever. There's no middle ground, is there?
Yeah,
you know,
Pandorica. I know. So let's shall we, James, get into what she said and then maybe have a bit of delicious fun with it. So Varada Sethu on Doctor Who reaction. If we get Dr. Walk comments, we're doing it right. The core of Doctor Who is kindness, love, and doing the right thing. Now, on the surface, things are always nice and innocent. You think, well, okay. I mean, Dr. Walk is, I've seen some streamers refer to that. There's a whole list of things. Doctor Who as a program, being about kindness, love, and doing the right thing. I think love is always doing a hard stretch. In classic Who, you wouldn't have said that the Doctors were all about love. They just did the right thing and they were moral heroes.
Yeah. Love of the universe and all that, love of, you know, not freedom, but like, yeah, it wasn't like,
yeah, we weren't
pouring out love and
joy.
But you know, we have to have more love nowadays, don't we, James? And as soon as everybody says they want more love, all I see is more hate.
See, it's breaking it down. It's Varada Sethu on Doctor Who reaction. If we get Dr. Walk, we're doing it right. Well, again, that's subjective. But again, there's nothing wrong with kindness or, you know, a love of the universe, which I got a big impression of the 2000s kind of run, was that it did celebrate a lot of British culture. It seemed to love British culture and was happy to show it, and did have a, you know, the Doctor talking to the Master about, you don't have to own the universe, you just have to see it and love that aspect of it. You know, there's a lot of, in that way, it's fine. And, you know, if you want to have things like that, then that was just called progressive. Or, you know, whereas Walk isn't that. It's a more extreme, heightened, again, it's a more extremist form of progressive. There's nothing wrong with being progressive. I'm quite largely a progressive person.
The thing is,
but Walk in itself is quite an extremist version of that.
But the thing is, James, they know what they're doing. I have to say, as an English teacher, I just look at what she says, and you know, I'm not going to get triggered just by those comments. However, you then know the context behind them, which is, and I'll show people later today. Millie Gibson said something very similar last year. Jodie Whittaker said something similar. Shruti Gatwa last year said, "Go and touch grass." Before you know it, it seems that the start of every year we're told, we're going to do this, and if you don't like it, you can clear off. So, James, I'm cynical because on the surface it looks okay, but I know that there's an agenda, and they're actually saying, we do it our way, off.
Yeah, if people don't like it, we're doing it right. means it's not about making entertainment. It's about pushing it. It's about pushing an agenda, and it's completely cynical. There's absolutely no intention whatsoever to entertain, and it's called the entertainment industry, not the indoctrination industry. That's called the education department. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. This is a drama. This is a sci-fi show. They seem to forget always that. But no, the show is now about kindness, love, and doing the right thing. I love the way these people who've never watched Doctor Who, some of the writers are the same, he's a refugee, he's a this. And you think, for God's sake, you don't actually know this program. You're lucky enough to get the job. Now do some research, but don't tell us lot what you're reinventing it as, because can we just call it out? I've taught Animal Farm too many times. 2 and 2 does not make 5. Sorry, you can't do it.
It's also no excuse as well for people. I never particularly watched it growing up. Well, neither did Matt Smith, but it didn't stop him from going back and researching
Matt
the
Smith
character and taking inspiration from Patrick Troughton. He would have been 20. He was 26 at the time of filming that. He would have been someone who was, born in the early 90s when the show wasn't actually on. So when he was a child, it wouldn't, maybe apart from repeats, or maybe he vaguely heard, oh yeah, there was a show called Doctor Who that I know of, but I don't know it. So again, even that isn't even an excuse.
Well, if you look at this, for example, Kes the Drone says, if the Doctor is outdone by someone just because they're a woman and his masculinity is a handicap, then they're going to be completely off the mark culturally. There is an issue. Everyone's talking about adolescence on Netflix, and Keir Starmer says every kid in every school should watch it, toxic masculinity and all that stuff. I'd be fighting back on that, saying,
yeah, because that's totally appropriate.
Don't tell us teachers what to show the kids. How dare you? I mean, honestly.
Exactly.
But
that's kind of what I meant with what I said earlier. It wasn't a dig at teachers.
But the thing is, having taught kids and been ahead of year, there is an issue with adolescence and with what Doctor Who's doing, where basically you can start to create your own backlash. And what you get with all the politicians is going, oh, some of the boys are very angry. Oh, and you're thinking, it's because you've made them angry, you idiots. If you've taken Doctor Who away from them, if you've diminished the male lead, and he's being bossed by the woman, and you wonder why teenage lads sometimes just get a rise out of this. You are the problem, broadcasters. You are the one who's created this. And now they're saying, oh, we've done a drama to solve the masculinity. You made it. You made it in the first place. I saw it every day in school. I saw so many teenage lads who were angry about things on the news and stuff like that. And they would get a rise out of Doctor Who becoming a woman, for example. I heard the kids do it. I was in what you could have called a very liberal, progressive school. But I'm sorry, the kids were still the kids. And I just think, isn't it funny that these people who are making these programs think they're so clever, and yet actually they're creating the reaction that they don't like, really. And then they go, oh, now we need a drama to solve the backlash. Honestly, I get the people who don't understand kids telling us what to do, really.
It's always been like that. Well, I say always, but you've had people like that in the past. Mary Whitehouse, getting offended on behalf of children. I think as long as children, recognise that what they're watching isn't actually real and isn't going to happen to them, it's okay to be scared. Whereas, okay, maybe in some instances, again, it's a different culture then, and obviously I can't speak to it, but seeing Tom Baker get drowned or in the process of being drowned and then going on a cliffhanger, again, I wasn't a child of the 70s, so it's a different time, but it's a lot of that, isn't it? It's getting a bit offended and protective of other people on behalf of them. I mean, okay, children, you should protect them on behalf of them because they're children, we're adults. So that's our job.
I'm just gonna catch up on the thread because they're all getting not triggered, but they're wanting to have their Tupperware on this one. Squinty Mint, I know it's triggering, but they're responding to questions. Now that's a fair comment. Radio Times, like the media, will ask them questions. The trouble is, as we go through this statement, yeah, she can say, oh, this happens, that happens. It's the peeing off. The fact that those two actors were going, ha ha, And they were enjoying the fact that they were getting a rise out of it. That's my problem, particularly. Then I join it to all the others. Paul Mabley, has anyone else made a TV show designed to pee off its audience? Surely they all need the help they can get. Paul, I am stunned that the great marketing ploy to get ratings back and to kind of recharge the Doctor Who show is to actually slag off the fans who were there in the wilderness years. Unbelievable. What a great... Sounds like Gerald Ratner. Remember that one? That didn't work, did it? Remember Budweiser Light? I mean, come on. Sadako, the sci-fi element can't work, though, if they're trying to make twee Disney nonsense. Well, there's that. I'm starting to wonder whether Disney's even the problem anymore, though. I do think RTD and all them are so ingrained in this. Paul Holgate, the problem is people like Gatwa and Sethu are being led by RTD. I changed it slightly. Farsight, it's a bit like JNT's quote about Mary Whitehouse bumping up the viewing figures every time she complained, but in reverse this time. I am getting, James, as I'm getting all these comments, I am getting more and more triggered to the point where season 1, I was shouting at the TV when Doctor Who was on. And that's the first time in my life. And I feel as though they've now energized me to start shouting at series 2.
Yeah. Total Streisand effect, really. Stop complaining about us. No. I only watched that one episode because I was on your review panel, and that's the only reason I watched it. I gave up on the show halfway through Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
But I watched it, and it was like, it was worse than Jodie Whittaker, which surprised me somewhat. Don't get me wrong, I liked like her first episode, maybe her first 2 episodes. I kind of even liked Kablam a little bit. It was overdone, but there was like some really good ideas in there. And I didn't think her acting was particularly bad. I thought the companions were mainly bland, but this, apart from, what was her name, Anita, it was like nobody could even act, and especially not the apparent Doctor.
Well, he's not written as the Doctor. This is the problem. I mean, God, give him some Doctor
at all. He's just told to turn up and ad lib.
If I was given the job Doctor Who and I'd be all excited, and then I'm given a script, and in the script I have a sink plunger and I'm doing the plumbing. I mean,
it's massively inconsistent too, because as someone who has been able to like him, some of what he's done, I watched Boom and I watched his first story, his first proper story, The Church on Ruby Road, and you see him jumping across the rooftops with his big coat flowing behind him. I think, yeah, that seems like Doctor to me. But then you get Rogue, where it doesn't even feel like he's the Doctor. He just feels like he's just turned up, and him and Jonathan Groff are having a sort of backstage chat, and they're all getting, they're having a laugh with each other, and there's someone said, right, roll the cameras. It just feels like someone's filming them. It doesn't feel like he's been the Doctor. And then in the next episode, snaps back again, where he's being vaguely the Doctor with a very terrible costume, which again is another point as well. They give him a really good costume one time and another really bad one the next. It's massively inconsistent, his characterization, and that's not a good thing, especially for people like me who can see. I can see the potential there. There is stuff I like about it, and you get something really good, or you get something really decent one week, and then the complete opposite the next week, and you think, so basically, for example, the people who just don't like his Doctor full stop, they won't they won't be disappointed if they see something they don't like. They'll just say, well, yeah, what do you expect? He's a bad Doctor. But when you actually do genuinely like something about him, and then something happens, it's like, oh, that's a shame. And it is a shame. It's disappointing when you hear rumours of him leaving after season 2. I don't actually particularly want him to leave. I want him to be better. I don't want him to get out. I don't want him to leave. Maybe that's. I imagine I'm in the minority in that one. I get that.
Yeah, because
do you see what I mean?
There's no goodwill for me when I've been told certain things by him. He has been undiplomatic with his language, unfortunately. Now, here we go again. Shooty was like, now this is Varada speaking, Shooty was like, look at us. We get to be in the TARDIS. We're going to pee off so many people, she laughed, before explaining how much positive fan responses to her joining the show have encouraged her. So let's just get this right. They seem to be saying there is a joke that she's had a lot of great feedback, that this Indian-born actress with this Rwandan-born male lead, they've had such positive reactions from the British public, and they are then talking about peeing off so many people. Now, there is a possibility, lads, that the headline here is being a bit mischievous, that actually they think the fans who do watch the program are very positive, and there's just other people out there. They seem to be talking about these people they don't really know, who are the racists and the nasty people. But you see, they're so clumsy with their language. I'm sat here as a fan thinking, are you thinking I'm getting a rise out of this? And therefore, there's an element where it could be taken a few ways, James.
It's kind of going at itself from opposite directions. On one hand, they're saying, oh, we're getting all this positive response from the actual fans. On the other hand, there's the viewing figures, which mean that the actual fans have disappeared. It was the least watched series of Doctor Who of all time, including the classic run, like from 1963 onwards. It's been proven to be the least watched series of Doctor Who ever in all of its 60 years. And they're saying that the fans love it. The only way that happens is if you've got
results, haven't we? And they say that it's not making any impact with the young audience, is it? We found that out rather recently.
Yeah, well, here we go. I mean, Cinnamon, you've led me up to just show the results again.
Yeah,
20 to 22% general apathy to Doctor Who. 26% general public have never seen Doctor Who. Out of the younger ones who he says he's wanting to capture, 18 to 24-year-olds, 26% prefer New Who, 40% have never seen any Who. And so, of course, that leaves another 30-odd%, which means they're like classic Who. So, in other words, New Who's not winning. And it goes up and up and up. And but yeah, that's what you were talking about, wasn't it, Cinnamon? Now,
yeah, pretty much.
Now, the issue here is it's that first paragraph, isn't it? Look at us. We get to be in the TARDIS. We're going to pee off so many people, she laughed. And yet they say they've got positive fan responses.
Yeah.
I have to say there were lots of positive fan responses to Shooty. There were lots of positive responses to Jodie being chosen. When I was at school, so many people going, oh, are you excited that it's going to be a female doctor? And I played the diplomatic card because I was in school. All those people who told me, isn't this great, then told me when the series came on that they didn't watch it. So in other words, you can have a positive response that, oh, this is a great virtue. This is a great box being
exactly virtue.
But when it comes to the story, when it comes to that character, they don't watch it. In other words, come on. They seem to be baiting the racists, but they seem to be kind of mixing or conflating with some fans who are actually saying we don't like the stories, or we don't like the character, or we don't like a diminished male lead. How would you pick apart that first paragraph, Cinnamon?
Well, it's a bit like I was saying before we came on air. It's a bit like, it's just like, I obviously we'll have disagreements with people on different sides, but it's, and if there's a particular individual that you have a rather big disdain for, then you might be able to find some joy, or you can find some amusement if they were to fall. Not obviously not in a terrible way, but like, if there's a particular character out there you just have no like for whatsoever, and they slip up in some way, you can take some small gratification from that. But it's just the language. It's very hostile, isn't it? It's very antagonistic. It's not just these people don't sound like they're in any rush to try and win us over. They've listened to it again. They say how much positive fan responses. Well, what a few people on Twitter, because again, the numbers don't really back that up. Hence my tweet. You've got people like us. Again, they really do think that we just sit here and don't like Shooty just because he's black, which is completely insane. Like, because when you just actually think about that for a second, okay, Shooty's black, so I don't like him. On what logic in our modern society does that make sense? It's completely unfounded. It's completely straw man arguments.
It is.
We don't
It is.
like. Well, I like him for some things, but a lot of people don't like you on your performance, on a lot of the things you've said, how you've behaved on the show and in interviews. It's not just because you don't look like me, so therefore I don't like you. No one's got a problem with Varada Sethu being in Doctor Who. But we have a problem when she comes out on the eve of a new season saying things like this, and you just go, "Oh, do you know what? You're really, you're a talented, beautiful actress. You're going to be in a big role. You've been in Star Wars. You're now going to be in this show. The future is bright for you." And you come, and again, like that someone in the thread pointed out, she didn't instigate this. I'm very sure that someone from the Radio Times, very liberal that they are, probably asked her. So in fairness, she's going to give an answer to a question she's been asked. But she has the control. She can control what answer she gives.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's something else going on here, James. That what's said in that first paragraph, in essence, could be well, the racists will be angry by that, and like Cinnamon says, we aren't racist here, so we shouldn't feel triggered at all by that statement. However, I know what is actually truly being said there. If we look at the TARDIS console room now, you have an Indian-born actress and a Rwandan-born actor. And I look at the cast list of the season 2, and it is getting interesting. I'll just say that. And I think that what they're saying about some people will be peed off is they are. A lot of people in Britain who are starting to get a little bit concerned that the cultural tectonic plates are moving and they're not having any say in it. And suddenly, Doctor Who, a cultural icon, is being moved around. And gosh, do you know what? We had 4 white people in 1963 in the TARDIS. Now we have 2 black people. Hey! And I think, James, that's what that statement is saying in paragraph 1. And that's why they know that people who are scared.
It's intentional antagonism. Antagonism, sorry. My language is terrible today. She said herself, they know they're doing it to people off, and that is just absolutely insane and egotistical and all of those words that I've said before.
Well, can I just say
it upsets me that sorry.
If they want to win an argument, if they want to defeat bigotry, do you know the best way of doing it is writing a drama that actually pulls people in and makes them think and challenges subtly their thinking. If you tell the bigots from a mile off, 2 months in advance, this show's not for you, clear off, you will never change their minds.
Because it has to be natural. It has to be natural. You can't force it. It's like, I don't care that it's a non-white TARDIS team. That doesn't really enter my thinking, but it enters theirs. Clear and they contradict themselves.
That's exactly the point.
There's another interview. There's another interview when Varada was on Star Wars, and she was talking about how she played a queer character. And in one breath, she says, "Oh, it's not a big deal." She uses a particular word that I can't remember, but basically the word she uses means that it's such a small non-issue. It's such a small thing, right? But then why do you talk about it all the time?
Because they're making it symbolic. The point is,
yes, it wouldn't be a big deal if they didn't make a big deal about it.
Yeah, but this is the point. There shouldn't be such a drama about a white TARDIS crew turning into a black TARDIS crew over 60 years. However, we know that the BBC, ITV, Disney, all of the media companies are doing something more. It is symbolic, but it's part of how they're wanting to manufacture, socially engineer how we see ourselves. And that is getting people's back up, because let's be honest, James, this is the BBC. We pay their license. We do have a say, actually. And so it's a fascinating one. So squinting into here, that cultural diversity is applicable to London and probably nowhere else. It's a London-centric liberat. I know, I agree. I mean, me and Cinnamon are in Middlesbrough area, and it's just fascinating how it's that metropolitan viewpoint being imposed on others. We townies are evil people. That's it. Our townies are terrible. We're so backward. It's terrible. Kez the drone.
Yeah, disgusting working class.
Oh yeah, the ones that love our vote every few years, and then they tell us we're bigots and far right afterwards. Kez the drone. How offensive would it be if a Chinese production company changed the ethnicity of Monkey God Journey to the West and expected Chinese to accept it? But this is the point, Kez. I think it is just Doctor Who. It is.
Is that talking about that old TV show? Is it called Monkey or something?
Yeah.
Is it? If it's what I think it is, anyway.
So it's just, but once you think Doctor Who's a British cultural icon, what they do with it actually has more significance, and they have to do it carefully. As I said, going na and sticking your two fingers up at everybody and swearing at people is not going to persuade bigots to calm down. It's just going to get a rise. So she went on to say that.
Again, it's just antagonistic, childlike playground behaviour. You know, you know, like, you know, we're gonna, you know, and they're getting a rise, they're getting a kick.
It reminds me.
Really
it reminds me when I used to be in the playground and there'd been a fight, and you stop the fight, and the one who was the victim suddenly starts going and starts, you know, being very abusive and shouting because they feel safe now because you've got your arm around them. Oh, and you're going, hey, stop it! You're getting them all angry. That sort of thing. It seems like they feel as though they're untouchable. They feel as though they have got a different power base.
Well, Russell certainly does, doesn't he?
Yes,
you know, no one can dare question him.
So she went on to say in this interview, as far as she's concerned, the show being woke is a very good thing, and something that is inherently very representative of Doctor Who as a series. Now, she does go into a bit more detail about, because woke can mean a lot of things. In recent years, while Doctor Who has attracted some flack for its perceived wokeness, one star believes that these accusations prove that it's on the right track. So let's just take a look at what she means before we have a go. She says her aim, you know, this idea of Doctor Who being called Doctor Woke. I just think that we're doing the right thing if we're getting comments like that. Woke just means inclusive, progressive, and that you care about people. And as far as I know, the core of Doctor Who is kindness, love, and doing the right thing. So have we got an issue with that?
Yeah.
What's the issue?
Yes. No, you've asked the question and I answered it. That's all.
Do you want to go first, Rhys?
I can.
But yeah, no, but it's like
it's so that. Completely tone deaf.
You know, it's
to the way that, I mean, I hope this is an okay word to use on YouTube, but the way extremists have taken over the narrative, and she's either part of that or she's completely tone deaf to it, and either way, that's a bad thing.
Well, it's just I'm taking the language that's there. I'm not stupid though. That I know there's context and there's other stuff, but what she says there is, if Doctor Who's accused of being woke, I'm okay with it because it means Doctor Who is inclusive, Doctor Who is progressive, and Doctor Who is all about caring for people. Now, in, you know, Cinnamon, is there a challenge there behind the scenes?
But again, I think I might have mentioned this earlier. You know, again, there's the difference between woke. Again, she thinks that being woke is just being kind and inclusive and progressive. I don't think so.
No.
Being kind and inclusive, those are its own words. You know, again, like I said, I'm naturally quite a progressive person. You know, there's often dialogue these days about whether two men, you know, whether they can call it marriage, because traditionally, you know, there was dialogue about whether, you know, there's the religious connotations to it between a man and a woman. you know, and it's a conservative talking point these days about whether you could call it a marriage. No, I would. At the end of the day, whether you're a man and a woman or a man and a man, if you engage in a lifelong promise to each other, you know, a lifelong fulfillment, a sort of social contract between the two people, that's marriage. You know, it's not just a word on a document. You know, it does have something tangible. You know, it's a promise to each other. So I would definitely call it marriage. But this is that same sort of like attitude, if that makes sense. It's conflating words. Now, if you don't mind me, if I'm going to read out my definition, because I recently wrote a definition. Now, it's a definition that I'm sure many people would agree with. But this is how I would define wokeness, because again, it's the age-old question. We have our question, and we say, "Oh, what is a woman?" And that's the big gotcha. And now they think they've got their own version, and they say, "Well, what is woke? You can't define woke." Well, here's my definition: the promotion/advocation of extreme and/or radical left-wing beliefs/ideology onto an existing medium. In this case, that medium being Doctor Who, in the pursuit to right perceived social injustices. Now, I ask you, do you see any issue with my definition? Can you pick
I
any
heard the
holes in
word
it?
extreme.
Pretty much what I meant. Oh, I'm completely disagreeing with Brendan then.
No,
That's pretty much what I meant when I said extremism.
I know, but when he said, "Have I got an issue?" As in, I'm playing the English teacher. I heard the adjective extreme, and
Well, extreme can be again. I know to further that, I would characterize that as we see people currently setting fires, again to cherry pick an example, setting fires to Teslas. I think that's rather extreme. The and the policies that they might advance would be considered very radical and extreme. It's not, again, being a sort of naturally progressive person. You know, I'm just happy that the Doctor's a male. To be honest, I think it's intrinsically a male role. Whether it's white or black doesn't make any difference to me.
This is the ignorance is truth thing from 1984, and the whole argument in George Orwell's book was that authoritarianism it spins you a yarn really and they trick you. She's saying here, I'm happy for Doctor Who to be called woke if it's inclusive. The trouble is, how many of us feel excluded? So in other words, how inclusive is it? Because it seems to be saying, remember the plot of Dot and Bubble seemed to be saying we're going to get a rise out of you, any of you lot who didn't know it was an all-white cast. What sort of loving, caring, inclusive show is that? As I said to you both a minute ago, if you're trying to calm down the bigots, if you're trying to actually even persuade the bigots that they're wrong, don't keep digging at them, poking at them, and actually just telling them that they're hateful people. Work on their insecurities. Have a look at this. And so Doctor Who is inclusive. I actually feel extremely excluded in some of the storylines. In some of their articles and interviews, I feel very affronted. Progressive, that's a bit of tat, that word. I have to say, progressive, that's one of those that's just been captured and it means a whole load of baloney, that word. Caring about people, well, the Doctor was always a hero. The Doctor was always moralistic, so I've got no problem there. Inclusive is the one that I have a problem with because I feel so many Doctor Who fans feel excluded.
Well, yeah, by definition, I know I was watching a stream earlier that said the same thing. You know, it's not inclusive; it's exclusive. You know, I raised the question: imagine if after Varada, and they do a season 3, if the next companion was a Bible quoting Christian who, at the end of every episode, gives some sort of, you know, a bit like a sort of Dot Cotton, you know, from EastEnders. Every episode, she was banging on about religion this or religion that. That would turn people off. They'd be like, "Oh, why she's always talking about religion? No, you're making it." You know, they'd soon have an issue with it then. So it's what difference does it make? And people will say, "Oh, well, you only had one kiss." Well, once something like the ideology grabs onto it, you know, you can picture it. Oh, there's only been a few things that have happened. Once it's there, it's all about it. So once the sort of queer ideology gets into Doctor Who, it's always about that. Again, like if you have a TV show with a queer taxi driver, it won't just be a taxi driver who happens to be a certain way. The Q part will be the main part of it.
Yeah.
It's never just about, oh, well, he's that and he's this. Like, again, James Bond or, you know, Indiana Jones, particularly type of people, the action heroes, strong masculine roles. Now they typically will have maybe a sort of female romance to go along with it, especially in the case of James Bond. We call them the Bond girls. Now, but we don't have to sit that we don't sit there in interviews and explore James Bond's sexuality, or and go into the the deep depths of, well, why does he always pick a woman? Whereas in the interview that Varada Sethu gave about her Star Wars character, she did. She said, "Oh, well, let's explore that. Why does it need to be explored?
The thing is, I
Really?
know.
And why do we have to obsess
Well,
about seeing ourselves? I don't need
no,
to
but this
see
is what I
an
mean.
autistic
This is what I
companion."
mean. These labels just end up being superficial labels. I hated the way Hollywood was so proud of themselves in the 80s and 90s when if they did a movie with a gay theme, it was about AIDS and the person died at the end. And they were so proud of themselves for portraying this. And you thought, it's a caricature. You're stereotyping. It's negative representation. I hated it. Never watched it. And this idea of being progressive and inclusive is just, it's a badge of honor. But as I'm going to say now, and the lads have already been saying, does it entertain? Is it Doctor Who? That's the name of the program. Or is this just, here's some ideology, make the most of it. And by the way, there was some space stuff in it. So what she says there, I know we can all have a good little argument about. She says the significant.
I think someone there took issue with my definition when it comes to the suffragettes. I think in clarification, I don't think the suffragettes were going around again setting Teslas on fires or causing mass destruction. And we weren't getting BLM type riots, were we? So I guess that's essentially where I'm coming from. Extreme is in violence, extreme radicals. That kind of behavior.
Let's kind of bring it back to Doctor Who, because what I hate about this, and it's happened with a few of our Bigenerates shows, and actually we've discussed this, the threads discuss this, we're here for our love of Doctor Who, and their references is almost pushing us onto a different agenda all the time, stopping us from actually saying, was that a good program? Was that a quality script? Was that well made? They really are taking us off that, or what they're actually trying to do is our voice doesn't count if we don't agree with some of the things they've got in the program. So when we do criticize the program, we're voiceless already. So Varada 36 says the significance of a TARDIS containing two people of color, a first for Doctor Who. I mean, I get so sick of this first lark. We had the first female doctor, and everybody, like I said at school, was so proud. And then, of course, nobody watched it. So I thought, well, you were so proud, you did not tune in. Therefore, don't bother me with all this nonsense. I
thought loads of people watched The Curse of Fatal Death.
Oh, you're talking about that one. I'm talking about obviously the Geordie, because this is the moment when everybody, my school was getting excited about, aren't you pleased it's a female Dr. Brendan? And of course, when after episode 1 and 2, I said, are you very pleased about how it's being portrayed? And they all went, we don't watch it. And I thought, well, stop getting on your high horse that you are pretending that you've bathed in one of the badges of virtue and you don't even watch the program, because what you're saying is it's a boring program. Shooty was like, look at us. We get to be in the TARDIS. We're going to pee off so many people. They are so racially aware. They are so colour aware. In 2025, that is trying to trigger a nation when the nation has been very tolerant in so many ways. And I find this just aggravating because they're not talking about the plot. They are just the indulged ones. Now here, she goes into a bit more detail about her upbringing. And this, as a Northeasterner, I start to get a bit triggered by. She's already nervous, however, about the reaction from the show's huge army of fans. I'm really excited about it because the show has been this intangible, beautiful thing in my head. But the moment it comes out, I'll have to deal with people's opinions. Born in Kerala, India, Varada's doctor parents brought their twin daughters to the UK when they were 6. And she said there was a big adjustment to be made as they settled into life near Newcastle. India was a sun-soaked world of tropical plants and fruit, family, love and warmth. And then we came to the UK. Obviously, I'm very happy that they came here, but there were definitely 2 versions of myself. She decided to tuck away and hide her Indian side in order to fit in. I wouldn't have taken curry in for lunch because there would have been comments. There would have been jokes that I have to then deal with. She got the confidence to throw herself into action after winning the Miss Newcastle title in 2010, having entered the beauty pageant to pee off her mother. Later, she trained to be a vet, but soon realised it wasn't for her. Now, there's so much to unpack there. Why is it they always seem to make, always seems to be a slight about being made to feel uncomfortable? I see nothing in her comments saying people were racist to her. The curry element, I'm sorry, I don't know where she's going with that. I mean, curry is almost like a national dish now. Are they looking for things? Because what she's saying is she settled in the Northeast. She can't list us any evidence of any terrible bigotry. She was made Miss Newcastle, so obviously people voted for her and accepted her. I'm trying to work out where the issue is, the way she had to tuck away and hide. And now the great moments in a TARDIS.
There's profit in it. It's just victim card. It's virtue signaling for money. It's if I can use the word, it's basically cultural prostitution.
I don't know. I mean, you're using the word, I suppose. It's like I just think she's talking a lot, but she's not saying anything.
I mean, it just seems a bit insecure if you sat there worrying about what food you can bring in the school and what food you can't. I mean, I was once told by some students who were Asian at my school that I wasn't allowed to watch Citizen Khan because it wasn't for me. Oh, it's a Muslim show. Why are you watching that? I'm like, well, I said at the time, is it not a BBC show? Is it not put out there for the whole country to watch? And, even back then, I was like 15 and it never made sense. It's like, what are you talking about? It means it's not made for me. It's a comedy. Like, okay, just because there isn't any characters on it that look like me, doesn't mean it's not for me. I can watch it just like anybody else. And and those lads were thought that they could say,
yeah, I remember
that I shouldn't be watching that.
Do you might be a little bit young, Cinnamon, but Brendan, do you remember Goodness Gracious Me and their sketch going through in English?
Yes.
You see, I didn't find that offensive. I thought that was blimmin' hilarious.
Well, that's satire. That's
yes, satire, exactly.
And that's the whole point. I was also in a Catholic school and they showed the life of Brian. We laugh at ourselves. We don't take ourselves so seriously that we are quite suffocating. So a Catholic school, there were nuns walking around. We had a nun head teacher. There was a convent behind the school. They played the life of Brian in assembly. So, I think that's pretty open-minded.
I mean, I'm a Christian myself, and Life of Brian is honestly one of my favorite films. It's probably in my top 3. Although I think my favorite film is probably Arthur with Dudley Moore, but I reckon Life of Brian's probably in my top 3.
But I'm also not asking for reparations, saying I'd like my family to be given some money because in the 1600s Catholics were burnt at the stake. I mean, I haven't gone down that victim road. It's amazing, isn't it? I've made my own way.
Yeah. Same with all the Cornish fishermen who were kidnapped during the but let's maybe get back onto Doctor Who.
Well, the thing is, she's got the job. In Britain, she was given the job. We haven't seen how she's delivered the job yet, but she's already kind of, saying comments that are antagonistic. She makes it sound as though, this is a major moment in Doctor Who and a major moment in Britain. And then when she lists her life, you think, well, you've been accepted. You've done well in Newcastle. You've had some decent job opportunities. What is the issue? I'm really stunned at why I'm even hearing this in a Radio Times national publication. There's no story here. So Belinda Chandra is going to play. They'll find her looking confused and stressed, feelings which Varada Sethu says required no acting skills. The emotions were caused by the breakneck speed between landing the job and being needed on set just a fortnight later. Because as you know, she was in Boom, and then he liked the chemistry between the two of them, did RTD. So 2 weeks later, she's got the job. So she didn't need to act because she felt confused anyway. But, you know, Cinnamon, are there any other issues that come to mind when you see her talking about this? We're both Northeasterners, and I just think you've been taken in. Remember, I did a stream about 2 months ago, and there was a teacher from Shooty's primary school who was furious. They'd looked after him. They thought he'd had a lovely childhood, and now he's making a kind of story about how he's had to kind of drag himself up. And they said he had a lovely childhood.
Well, yeah, it does seem like that. I mean, listen to what she's saying. It does seem like, oh, poor me. Poor me. I mean, look at you. You're in all these franchise. You're not exactly, on food stamps, love. You seem to be doing okay. Again, you're a good actor in Boom. I thought she was really good in that. She's obviously in Andor and Star Wars. I haven't seen that, but to be in a big Disney show like that, that's impressive to put on your CV. As is Doctor Who, even if it's the current iteration of Doctor Who. She's doing well for herself, and she's earned that right because she's put herself there. She's put, went to acting school, whatever. She's obviously got herself a good agent. She's got these opportunities, and so good for her. So, to put yourself, it's just putting yourself down unnecessarily, especially when, you've got even people who know you, like, hang on, like, why you make it like you? It's like all this victimhood mentality, oh, I've got to have a really bad sob story. No, me personally, I had a great childhood. My parents fought so hard and did their best to give me the, if there was ever something I wanted, and I couldn't have it at that particular time, they'd always try to ensure that, okay, you can't have it now, but next time, and they'd work hard to do that and to provide me with a very good childhood and one that I have very, very fond memories of. Nothing that I have any, there's times that I was bullied again. Again, like I said there, would you not think? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be all dramatic about it, but like I said, 2 Asian lads telling me that I'm not allowed to watch a TV show.
You see, if you take a look, we had the premiere the other day of episode 1, The Robot Revolution, and our male lead is dressed like that. And you could argue, good for him. He thinks he's safe in 2025 to, I don't know. I mean, what the hell? So, when they try and do the victim and there's a lot of hatred out there, I will comment on fashion and go, well, you obviously feel very confident to be able to wear that. So I think that says a lot about our country, to be honest. But, right. Remember last year? He even had to make a video last year, Shooty Gatwa. Remember, I see how protective you lot are on social media. I see it. Me and Millie had this conversation in the cast tent the other day about how protective you guys are. And it's really not unnoticed. It's very noticed. And we love you for it. In other words, we know we're going to get a reaction. And we love the fact that you are bothered. I mean, is this just another example of being played? Or is this a different example, do you reckon, James, really?
I don't think it's very different, no. It's like they're taking pleasure by knowing that they're upsetting people. It's okay, it is slightly different. It's further than I said before. It's more like a power trip. It's like, we can do whatever we want, and if you don't like it, we can call you every name under the sun, and you'll be the evil person. When we've come in and messed around with something that's been around for generations and messed it up, but if you don't like it, then you're bad.
And can I just show Cinnamon this example, which is this, right? When we apparently criticize the program for its quality or its character or its storyline, they bundles up in this kind of category. But it was all right, Cinnamon, for Stephen Moffat, for Chris Chibnall, for RTD, for those to criticize Doctor Who. They're allowed to criticize Doctor Who. When we've criticized Doctor Who, we are nasty people. And here's an example here. If you look at other stuff from the 60s, there weren't crap. It was just Doctor Who. The first episode of Doctor Who betrays the lie that it's just the 60s, because the first episode is really good, but the rest of it is SHIT. Stephen Moffat quote. They're allowed to say that, but they're very nice, progressive, nice people.
Yep, it's even Moffat, God love him, he'll say, "Oh, I'm only joking," but it's all right for him to riff on it. But if we riff on their era, we're called every name under the sun, so it's okay to riff on classic Who, but yeah, don't riff on modern Who, otherwise you'll be called a racist, bigot, all these other words. Cherry picking, we can do it, but you can't.
I did a recent show where I went through Stephen Moffat's criticisms of William Hartnell, his criticisms of Tom Baker, his criticisms of Pertwee. I mean, and that's allowed. Of course it is. It's freedom of speech. But then it seems that other fans are not quite given that same leeway, James.
No, but it's whether you support the BBC, WEF, whatever function you want to name. If you support their agenda, then whatever you say is right. And if you don't support their agenda, then whatever you say is wrong. And it's just because it's become so ingrained in mainstream media. I mean, that's why, like, YouTube has so many views. That's why your channel has so many views. That's why, even though I haven't put out any content for nearly a year, I'm still gaining subscribers by being on other people's shows. People are bored with the mainstream media because they're constantly pushing an agenda. And it's insulting, but it's also boring. And that's almost worse than insulting, because, as license fee payers, as you mentioned earlier, we're actually funding this superhuman information technology.
Well,
I mean, that was literally what I said on the previous stream that I was on. When we had Sonny on and things like that, we were talking it, weren't we? One of the worst things a show can be is boring, to have no interest, to be completely flat, in that term. I mean, I know there's not much interest now, but to be boring, which the Georgie era was, one of the worst things you can do, isn't it?
Well,
really, I know. Agenda aside.
But this is what I seem to think is happening. Are we talking about season 2's trailers? I have to say, I am appalled at the amount of trailers. I really am seriously putting the point out there, lads, that there have been so many publicity shots, so many trailers, that in the end, is there any story left apart from the Easter egg surprises in episodes 3, 6, and 7 that he told us about in the Doctor Who Monthly? We're going to get the Master back as Missy, probably. We're going to get Omega, blah, blah, blah. Susan maybe makes an appearance. But the rest of the season is just basically lots of stunts, TARDIS action, and that's it. And so basically, there's no kind of content. Basically, the virtues is all they want us to talk about, because there isn't much of a story. Therefore, as somebody who did this meme, and funny,
I haven't seen.
Would you look at that?
Oh no, I have seen that one, but I haven't seen it since we saw it.
Well, I'm not saying I think that. It's just a lot of people are being led that way. And actually, in a way, isn't Varada Sethu saying it is Dr. Woke? So there you go. But that's our big...
It's just, do you know, people like J&T, I believe, liked drag. But you never saw him, pushing for it or advocating that it had to be in Doctor Who.
Well, no, you don't. You don't have, believe it or not, and I'm not a Doctor Who writer, but I don't think you have to put your private life on telly. Is Doctor Who trying to be woke? Is my question to the thread and my panelists then. So she said being woke is good, and it means Doctor Who's doing the right thing. Now, let's just kind of draw a line in the sand, everybody. Is Doctor Who actually turning woke? Is it? Evidence, examples, or are we all being too triggered by this one? So I just want to show a few quick examples as Cinnamon thinks and James thinks. So is it already woke? Is there anything wrong with that? And what are your examples for it? So here we go. A year ago, before season 1 started, we were getting headlines like this. Ncuti Gatwa teases the gayest doctor ever. Case point 1. New Doctor Who companion Millie Gibson. There are so many controversial elements to this season. It's what we need. And what I wanted to show you is the Millie Gibson interview in so many ways is like the Varada Sethu interview. In other words, are they actually not accidental? They're actually being told a slant, because Millie Gibson seems to be saying it's going to be so controversial, and by implication, if it triggers you, doesn't matter, because this is what we need. And that's basically what Varada Sethu was saying as well. I actually think
It's funny because I don't think Millie ever really spoke out about anything like this after that interview. I think that was like, it was a once and done kind of thing. You know, after that, she kind of just did her thing, was an actor and acted and promoted the show in interviews. But, you know, she never did much promotion of any ideology. It was just that one interview. So, and again, also, funnily enough, again, now they're doing it with Varada. Be interesting to see whether she continues to speak up. Yeah, no, Ncuti and Russell are very
this
happy
is
to
where
speak.
this is why I'm saying, is Doctor Who woke, and is this the reason why some people are being angered? Because she said, not being a Doctor Who fan, she said there are so many controversial elements to this season. She's not saying it's an exciting season. She's not saying, oh wow, some of the space adventures will wow you. She's just saying it's going to be controversial, and that's what we need. That's basically doing that. Ncuti Gatwa, it's going to be the gayest Doctor Who ever. Live with it. And I've got the quotes. So if anyone wants to take me on, I've got piles of quotes to show you how he said, and that's how it's always going to be. In other words, we have captured the show. This is what we mean by Dr. Woke, and you lot better get with the script. And I'm sorry, whether it's Millie Gibson, Varada Sethu, Ncuti Gatwa, Jodie Whittaker, RTD, they're all telling us this is the way Doctor Who is now. Get with it.
The only thing Doctor Who needs to be is Doctor Who. Doesn't need anything else. Anything else is just a cherry on top of a cake. You know, if you, again, you can have political themes in your stories as long as it's there to serve the story and is there for a point. You know, again, you can have episodes like we have before where we've asked a question, or we've brought up a debate and we've left it open-ended, or left the viewer to make their own opinion. It's like when we had Rosa, sorry. That was just an episode of Chibnall. Well, it wasn't Chibnall's episode, it was another writer. But you know, that was an episode that was telling you racism is bad. You don't need to tell us. We already know that racism is awful, deplorable. But you don't have to point your fingers and tell us that it's awful. I'm pretty sure we can figure that out for ourselves. And that's what a lot of it has been like. It's telling you what the issue is and telling you what the right opinion is, not showcasing or highlighting. Again, you can bring attention to issues similar to in a format that EastEnders has.
Yeah, but
obviously, I wouldn't expect quite EastEnders and East Doctor Who to be the same, obviously, of course. But you know, you can highlight an issue and leave it open to interpretation in a sci-fi
Cinnamon,
context.
you started your answer then by saying, but you know, is it Doctor Who? So with those headlines you see there, in what way is it it's a genuine question, is it acceptable in the Doctor Who storylines that one of the doctors just acts a bit more gay? Is that part of what we understand as the Doctor character? Is it acceptable also, Cinnamon, that in Doctor Who there's always controversy? Or is that a new thing, therefore they're doing something different? And my third question, Cinnamon, they're all linked with these headlines. The top one there, Cinnamon, says, she laid out her sketches on the table and I saw kilts and skirts and all kinds of gender-pushing, societal-pushing outfits. Is it also the Doctor Who you understand that when you see what the Doctor wears and what the companion wears, they're always out there and very challenging to how you've been brought up? Are they giving you the Doctor Who you know?
No, not in its entirely. It's a bit like making a sandwich that's been left on the side for a day or two, half eaten, given to it tastes vaguely like what it used to, but it's not the complete package because again, like you've just highlighted, gender pushing, societal pushing outfits. I didn't realize that was something that we apparently need. The Doctor again. Like when Rogue came out, of course, you had the apologist who rushed to defend it and said, "Well, Captain Jack kissed the Ninth Doctor." Well, yes, exactly. Captain Jack kissed him. It wasn't reciprocated. And again, they point, "Oh, well, you didn't have an issue with Madame de Pompadour." Well, again, that when we talked about that before about the implications, of a child growing up and all that, but she is I won't say the aggressor, but she is the one that's pursuing that. She's the one that pushes him up against a wall, and you can see how uncomfortable he is. Again, he's not sitting there thinking, "Quo, blimey." He laughs about it afterwards when he realizes who she is and she's an important person. But that's it. He doesn't go around thinking about her lusting after her like the 15 does in Rogue, where he can't stop himself gyrating around
Yeah,
to
and
Kylie Minogue to him, and again, it always feels like he's the one that sees him, he spots him, he goes up, starts flirting with him. Oh, I've got my brooding face, and he's just disinterested at
I
first.
was talking to Sonny Waffles, who represents himself.
Is the one that's pushing it. So yeah, that's not.
So what I
Like a
was trying to
relationship
say
with
is
people.
Sonny Waffles. Hold on, Sonny Waffles, who has been on our show. He represents himself just like I represent myself, and you two too. We only represent ourselves. There's no such thing as community crap. But I asked Sonny particularly whether he thought that there was an issue that they've got a black male lead who they're having underpants when he's regenerated. And he's almost kind of treated and diminished by, the companion arcs are more powerful. And Sonny, he's in the thread now, and he'll tell me if I'm getting him slightly wrong. But I think Sonny agreed with me that this is not a progressive move, that the first Black Doctor is diminished in such a way when they never did that to David Tennant when he regenerated. They didn't do it to Jodie Whittaker. It's a backward step. It's nothing clever at all. Who wrote the script? An old white man. Not clever at all.
That's because Sonny makes a very good point. Again, did you remember when they were scared to have David Tennant appear in Jodie's clothes?
Yeah.
I know you're black, Sonny, but yeah, they had that, didn't they? Oh, well, we can't have that because it's seen as insulting drag. I mean, nobody thought of that except you, Russell. You just
Well, it
only
would
you
have
could have
been.
thought of that problem. I've seen it. I actually seen an image yesterday of, I don't know who it was, but I think I saw it on the group chat that I'm a part of, and someone edited Tennant's face into sort of the Jodie body, basically to show what it would look like if David had emerged in her clothes.
Yeah.
It looked fine to me. It didn't look like anything ridiculous. I can't imagine anyone would be poking
You
fun at
see,
drag.
can I just point out the contradiction in all the people at Bad Wolf here? I'll just show you that statement again, and then I'll make my point. Pam Down, the costume designer, was told by RTD that he wanted gender-pushing, societal-pushing outfits. And as me and Cinnamon have just started to say, it wouldn't have been gender-pushing and very societal-pushing if the 14th Doctor wore the female costume when they regenerated. Oh, no, we can't do that. So they are only gender-pushing and societal-pushing when they think they can do it. And they thought they couldn't do it with David Tennant, but they thought they could do it to Ncuti. Now, I think that's a problem. And I don't think that's progressive.
Yeah, because again, they wouldn't dare do this with Jodie. Again, when I saw a concept image once before of Jodie, and she had more makeup, she had it wasn't sexualized outfit, but it was slightly more. It was more skirts and ever so slightly low cut tops and it was slightly more feminine costume than what her character eventually wore. Now that was completely unacceptable. Absolutely no. But when it comes to a homosexual black guy, we can dress him up like a Ken doll and have him in these very revealing kind of tight outfits, and he's okay to be sexualized and to be dangled around in his boxes, like Sonny says, and Sonny opinion. I mean, all our opinions count for something, but I would like to think Sonny, as a black gentleman himself, has some weight to this, because again, would they do this with any other doctor? No. So why is it any
Well,
different
I
to
mean,
when we have shooting?
well, when I asked Sonny the question, and Sonny's there, and he will explain it for himself. And like I said, we all only,
Yeah, go on.
we, none of us are a community. We're just ourselves. But yeah, I think Sonny was saying that basically he sees it in lots of things where they diminish the black actor by adding LGBTQ label on top and other stuff instead of just making them a black character. That's it. Just get on with the story. They get the same issues as everybody else. As Adrian Sherlock.
And it's another point to Varada as well. When they talk about all these people who complain about woke, we're not all just straight white guys. We've got gay guys, we've got black guys, we've got women, we've got all sorts of different people that are critical. It's not all just one group. So let's be, they need to realize that they can't just pigeonhole everyone into that little box, because it's anybody can feel dismayed by this era. Anybody can.
As Adrian Sherlock is saying here, I love black actors, but the Doctor was established. I love women acting too, but the Doctor was established. I struggle with established characters changing beyond what they were.
That's true.
This is the problem. We want Doctor Who. Now, so there you go. That was my starter for 10 on whether Doctor Who is woke. And there we go. There's the next one. Why is it acceptable? Is it acceptable, Thread and Cinnamon, that we had an episode when the Doctor experimented with a relationship? Because the argument is he kind of did it slightly in the Aztecs. Is this just an important storyline? I mean, when you look back, I'm trying to be very moderate. When you look at Rogue, was it an important story in learning about the Doctor, or was it just a badge put on top?
Badge put on top. It's just, it felt like a sort of an excuse to sort of, again, we're going to do it because we can. We're going to have this relationship and we're going to make it feel so forced, because that's what it felt like. It felt forced. Again, Jonathan Groff's character was just on there on his own. As soon as Shooty's Doctor sees him, as soon as he clocks him, he's up there and, within a flash, flirting. Oh, my ship's bigger than yours. It's just got this sort of, again, and it was just, I watched it and thinking, this just doesn't feel natural. The Doctor wouldn't do this. And I'd say the same whether it was a woman. Why would the Doctor so aggressively lust and pursue and flirt, and make it his mission throughout the entire episode to be with this woman or this man? So it just felt unnatural to me. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah.
Yeah, James.
Like I say, I've only seen reviews of that episode, but to me, it just looks like.
The thing is, whether you saw it or not,
an abusive position of power, and like just posturing. It just doesn't seem like the story meant anything, and like everything I've read about how the Doctor just goes after this rogue character and completely ignores the fact that his actual companion is in mortal danger, and then cries about it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say to you, whether you've seen it or not, it doesn't matter, actually. You're a Doctor Who fan, and you think, having not seen the episode, is it something the Doctor would ever have done from your understanding? Now, to my understanding, the Doctor just does not get involved, not at that level. Certainly doesn't wreck his safeguarding of the companion. I mean, he's never been totally perfect with companions. I mean, how come every week in the classic era the companion was always in peril and the cliffhanger? But the point is, he came good. But so I think Rogue is another example where I don't know why it was put in. I didn't see any reason, and I certainly didn't.
And even in the classic era, there was usually a good reason why the Doctor wasn't there. It wasn't because he was off flirting and courting some fella or
No,
some woman.
he was probably poisoned in the basement of some cottage.
Well, we've got here, Paul Mabley says, I watched Rogue, but I have no memory of the content. Now, there may be irony and a bit of mirth in what he's saying, but I think there is an awful lot of merit too, because when you think about it, it's all the superficial stuff. Was there much of a story? Did it make any sense in itself, in isolation? You know, we all, the end bit, some people are kind of, oh, will we see Rogue again? The story in itself, did it make any sense? It seemed to be cosplaying aliens. And the Doctor
when
was
you
a
take
little
the
bit
relationship
irresponsible.
part of it out, which is obviously is the main component of that episode, and he said story there. Once you take that main component out, what are you left with? Okay, you've got a sort of side plot about some angry birds cosplaying the world to death. I mean, I understand not every villain has to be like, I want to destroy the world. But it's a bit like, well, cosplay the world to death. I mean, a bit more
Cosplay is
impressive than that.
superficial. Cosplay is superficial. I mean, you can do what, I mean, it was never a term before. It was called dress up before, but now it's called cosplay. But cosplay is a superficial, it's called, you know, pretending you're somebody. Do I want aliens? I want a proper motivation. I don't want this play acting. I think Doctor Who, everybody gets triggered by saying, oh, in an 8-episode series, we had 2 Doctor Light episodes. I'm more triggered by the whole series was Doctor Who Light. That was my issue.
Yeah.
I mentioned Dot and Bubble earlier. There's another example where they thought they were being woke. And of course, I mean, God, it's a gift that keeps giving. How many elements from the Star Beast? The Doctor Who show was trying to be woke here. In fact, I think it was probably one of the worst examples. You had the chosen pronoun nonsense. You had this whole speech. This is RTD explaining himself. And I just felt like, lucky enough to be, sorry, this is Yasmin Finney, and then in the blue is RTD. And I just felt like lucky enough to be seen as a trans person. I think representation is so important. And if I had Rose growing up, it would have been a completely different story, I think. I'm a teacher. I'm not sure if a blooming one story is going to make any difference. I think representation is what we need. I think. There's a lot of thinking going on here. And what the younger generation needs to feel like they can do it too. So basically, if I was a trans kid at school and having a hard time, if I see the Rose character who suddenly regenerates and uses all this energy from Donna and everything and suddenly becomes a special person, I feel as though I can do it at school. Baloney. And then RTD says, Rose goes beyond words, beyond definitions. And it's important, I think, he's thinking now, that visibility thing. I've said before, like as you were saying, if you grow up seeing this stuff, homophobia and transphobia happens when it's something you've never seen before. You can temper that reaction and change it. Oh, he's good, isn't he?
I mean, it's funny. I can't stop laughing because it's for all this talk about, oh, I wish I had a character like Rose growing up. Well, you'd only see it for 2 minutes. Because I like Rose at the beginning. Because I thought, okay, they've got this trans character. But I thought, at the beginning, they give her a motivation. Oh, she's sweet. She does these things and she makes these little teddies and she sells them to Dubai or ships them to Dubai. You know, she's got a little hobby. And then when the scene in the shed when she's talking to Beep, and she's like, oh, and they're trying to relate to each other. And I said, oh, sometimes I feel like an alien. I actually quite like that scene because you've actually humanized. Although I'm not like her, I can see sort of where she's coming from. But then after that scene finished, she just completely dropped practically for the rest of the episode and then popped up at the end when it was convenient to say binary, binary, binary. Oh yeah, let's save the world. And when that was done, again, she's then next scene in the finale where she's sent investigating some burglary. I mean, I know she's only young, but like,
I think
we shouldn't be working there anyway. But it was something like that, wasn't it? It was just you had this character
shoplifting in
that had
Catford.
potential.
Shoplifting in Catford.
Yeah, I mean, wow, is that all she can do? And then stand there with a tablet? It just, you actually had an opportunity, and this isn't just me saying this, by the way, because you've had actual people who were on board for all this, even criticize Russell himself because they say, well, hang on, she's not really trans because she chose to be. She's trans because of the bigeneration, because between Doctor and a male Time Lord at that time. That was kind of the kind of what he was intimating it almost. So that's got a bit of flack from them. They also
we
didn't
just-
like the fact that, again, she just dropped off the face of the earth and became such a non-important character.
Can I
They
just
could have
bring
really
in-
built her up to be really likable.
Yeah. Can I just bring in Mr. Puzzled? Hello, good to see you. I love to see new names and everything. Now, at the end of season 2, we've got the reality, the war on reality. And I find it an interesting question because while we're looking at what they've done before and whether it's woke or not, or whether actually it's got some integrity, the final episode of season 2 of a now literally a show more like Charmed from the 90s with more diversity of people and sexual presentation, the Rani will be a Sarah Palin type. The one reality is an interesting concept regarding, lads, that RTD thinks, do you know what? We're just going to completely distort. If reality is bad, we think there's an awful lot of nasty people out there. We're just going to distort it and show you how it should be. You can take this so many different ways that reality is bad, so we'll do our own reality where things are different. I just hate this social engineering aspect of Doctor Who now.
Because that always goes well, isn't it? Let's shape our own reality the way we like it, and we'll do it better this time. We know what to do.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned this. I mean, the Star Beast is a killer episode, and as Simon Mills said earlier, this is supposed to be 60th celebration of Doctor Who, and the first episode back, I just didn't know what to think. Of course, the male presenting Time Lord is not as good as a female one. We had all that. We had the binary
precursor for in the Chibnall era, where Jodie said that she got an upgrade.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
that's really when I started to tail off.
we can allow jokes. Jokes are all right in isolation, but when you add it to these plots, when you add it to saying female presenting is better than male presenting, and if you remember, lads, I really did mean this at the beginning of our show today when I said, as a teacher, when they're going about adolescence is amazing and they've got to show it to kids in schools and they're very scared about the toxic masculinity in schools, you're going, hold on a minute, what did I say, lads? I said the media, you've made part of this reaction in the first place. You're a teenage lad, age 13, and you're trying to find your way in the world, and you're watching Doctor Who, and it says female presenting people are better than male, and you're not expecting a backlash. I'm sorry, I don't know how many points these media lovies need. You have created the toxicity. You've created the anger in these young kids because they're being told if they're a white young lad, they're bad, they've got no value, and then must change. It's wrong.
Well, that's what Russell does a lot, though. Again, like he picks a fight. You could you could find a reason to fight with himself in an empty room. What I'm trying to say, with the whole thing like Davros. I don't think many people look at Davros and think that's just awful. It needs to change. He saw an issue with it. He's now rectified it, so he's created an issue and then fixed it. And again, similar with other things, he picks an issue, feels like there's some massive outrage when really there isn't, and then again tries to swoop in like the hero and fix it.
He's a gay man, and there's gay rights and gay equality in Britain, so he needs to find another crusade, and he's found it. So when I asked the question, since Varada Sethu was talking about if Doctor Who's woke isn't that a good thing, and I'm saying, is Doctor Who actually woke? Is it being wokeified? I still haven't finished the list. Don't worry, it's just a list of examples. Davros. This just goes on and on and on. The show is being used as some sort of kind of virtue signaling kind of award show.
There's plenty of examples to choose from.
Which I think we're going to have an absolute complete episode on in the next series.
It's possible.
The Interstellar Song Contest thing.
Yep.
I'm dreading having to watch that, but I will, so I can stay up to date and relevant for the show. But
it's it's just, you know, as Adrian Sherlock was saying earlier, you know, the established character and the established storyline, and you need to fit with that. And then you get a new writer for Doctor Who saying, as we know, I've always loved the show, he says. I've watched since I was 10. It's about a displaced refugee from a war-torn planet who arrives on Earth with a screwdriver. No, 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 no.
Completely wrong.
Run. You've not done your research. You're picking at facts. You're imposing an ideology on top. It's the wrong one. Go away. Stop it. This is what I mean. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, Davros is an example. Inua Elam saying this. Juno Dawson saying something else. RTD saying something else. Varada Sethu saying something else. Jodie Whittaker saying something. This is ridiculous.
Jinx Monsoon thinking RTD created Doctor Who.
Yeah. And by the way, if people are saying, Brendan, you seem a little bit more triggered than normal, I have now compiled more evidence to say, when do we actually say out of order? This was when Jodie Whittaker was asked a question when she'd just been given the job. Modern day Britain is one thing, but what if the Doctor materializes in the European Dark Ages? And she said, what Chris Chibnall wanted to do, particularly in the casting and the stories, reflect the world we live in today. Very often, we're only seeing stories being told through the white male gaze. That's what Doctor Who always celebrated. It didn't celebrate anything; just told stories.
Yeah,
the backlash is always. And what I've put in the green boxes, what I've put in the green boxes underneath is all the language from different articles and interviews that Ncuti Gatwa, RTD, Jodie Whittaker, and other program makers from Doctor Who have used about us, the fans.
It's that key word there, celebrated. I partially agree with the first part of it. I mean, I wouldn't quite call it white male gaze, but I get that, yeah, typically Doctor Who was viewed mostly by men, made by men, typically. So from that point, but to say that it was celebrating that, or it went out of its way to make it for men, by men, no, it was just the way it was. It was just so happened to be male showrunner, male producer, you know, a TV show that typically spoke to male fans. Didn't go out of its way to celebrate it. It wasn't like an integral part of it. It wasn't like Doctor Who, a massive component of it is it's male gaze. It's that word there, celebrated, is really it's intimating a lot of things.
I would like to bring my affection for the story of the Aztecs up in this particular premise, because you know, Barbara standing up to the Doctor, and the Doctor says, like, no, you can't do that, and takes her away. I know that's a very, very basic way of saying it, but you know, she was a white woman from the 60s, and she was saying, no, let them do their thing, and the Doctor was saying, like, no, they can't. You've got to let history take its own course. And it's just like, it really bothers me that people are trying to rewrite history, and what old Doctor Who was about was talking about history, not rewriting it, and not like.
And by the way, James, I want to show you that another question that came up to Jodie Whittaker. You see, this is what I mean. Take your pick. New Who is aggressive to fans. So she talked about the white male gaze, but she continued. So she was asked the question, if somebody actually came up to you and said, I'm not watching the show anymore because the Doctor's a woman, how would you respond? And she said, I think you'd have some internal issues that need addressing. Now, she may have said it as a joke, but how many jokes do we accept? The point is this. No, as Adrian Sherlock said, it's always been a male character, so it's established. Sorry, that's part of the characterization.
Yeah,
so
why is it suddenly my problem? Why have I got this? I mean, again, I personally was, open to a female. I was, I was like, I was impatient for it. I couldn't wait to see what it would be like with a female Doctor. Looking back, I'd probably think it was a mistake, but again, there's a difference there.
Yeah, same.
I don't know what the word is, but it's almost on her to sort of to prove herself, to say, no, I'm the right person for this role. I'm going to prove to you. I'm going to do my best to convince you. I'm going to try my best to prove to you that I can be the Doctor. No, it's your problem. Well, no, you've made it my problem. It wasn't my issue. You've just decided that it's now going to be my problem.
Cinnamon,
Again, you went from a male Doctor to now suddenly being a female Doctor and putting all your eggs in one basket and making such a big deal about it, even though eventually you never really did much about her being a woman anyway.
Cinnamon, do you find their reactions are always the same? So I'll just list 3. Jodie Whittaker says, you have internal issues if you don't like it being a woman. Varada Sethu says, it'll pee you off. Yeah? And then, of course, we had go and touch grass if you don't like it. The pattern is the same, which is this is how we do it, bug off and clear off. It's a very non-inclusive approach.
I mean, my sister is a woman, and she didn't particularly want a female doctor, as I know other women who didn't want a female doctor. Suppose they've got some internal issues that they need to work on, I guess, I suppose.
But they know. I listed the example when it says this will be controversial. This is the first ever female, doctor and all the rest of it. They know they are changing the show. And as they're changing the show, they're saying, if you don't like it, lump it, clear off. But they know they are changing established canon. They are the ones doing the vandalizing, but you're not allowed to point that out.
It's not like Severance, is it, where they're all going to work and not realising it? They know full well what they're doing. They're setting their stall out. And then when you say, oh, okay, you're doing something different there, I'm not sure I'm on board for that. Well, you can go and do yourself then. You can go and get whatever. Go away.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the language here.
You made it our problem.
Yeah. Don't watch, turn off the TV, go and touch grass, please, for God's sake, is one example. Then, of course, Shooty said, the Doctor Who programme always evolves and it regenerates. For all you dammers out there, I'm not going anywhere. And it's like, excuse me. I've moved on. I don't care. I mean, the argument's there. Then you get, because the programme's been captured, you then get the nutters in various publications like the Metro article saying this. I mean, she's notorious. Look at that. I mean, that headline is disgraceful. Sorry, straight white men. Doctor Who was never made for you. What? It was made to entertain. It wasn't a message.
I think it's nice that the London Underground can be bothered to put like articles to entertain you on their free toilet paper.
True. It is a laugh every time. It's the gift that keeps giving to streamers, because honestly, you look at language like this, and I'm amazed it's allowed to be printed. Talk about race.
That's so exclusionary. It's like it's beyond. Now I've realised there was a double meaning behind what I was going to say, which I didn't mean, but beyond the pale.
Right, and her article, she talks about you see, this is what I mean. They know they're changing things. An unapologetically queer black Doctor Who, and then now people are saying it's too woke. Now it's been torn apart by woke ideologues. It's been changed is the issue. I mean, our question is, did it make the story better? We don't want you to be unapologetic.
You shouldn't have to apologise, but we don't want that to be about that. That's all you are. No one's saying you can't be what you want, Shooty. No one's telling you to go away or I'm here to stay. No, you can stay. You don't have to apologise for being who you are. But when you play this character that is beloved by generations, we do expect, and again, I feel for him in some respects, not everything, not completely, but because it would appear that the rumours were that he wanted to play it straight in the sense that traditional. And he's been stifled by that, apparently. By Russell, who wants to push it with these costumes, and apparently Shooty wanted to have a really nice costume that was something akin to sort of German. It was sort of like a schoolboy German outfit. Yeah. It was really, really smart.
Yeah,
and that so Shooty's had his own ideas on his own vision, but again, and these are the rumors that he's been. Oh no, we're not doing that. We're going to do this. So again, he's been. I don't feel too sorry for him, obviously, because he's made his bed. But, he has been stifled in a sense.
Yeah, but I mean, if people want to play this progressive, inclusive game on representation, darling, who's his boss? A white man. And so what we're saying, that the white man wouldn't let him play the doctor how he wanted, but all the other doctors were given leeway. Now, if
Yeah,
that
he let Tennant, pick his shoes, and that was a big component of Tennant.
therefore,
That he chose
if
Converses and
so,
a big
if
coat.
that rumor's true, if it's true, it's not a good look for Mr. White Man RTD.
Yeah.
If it's not true, it's just a load of blather, because that means he's got no excuse. He should have played it how he should have played it. Now, Anthony Parkinson here says, if Verity Lambert and Boris Hussein had been zealots like RTD and his cohorts, the show would have been a stillborn in 63. Exactly. They knew what they had to grab the kids between grandstand and jukebox jury. That was the game in town. Nobody sat at the BBC saying, right, when grandstand finishes, we need to lecture and indoctrinate the kids about how to behave at tea time on Saturdays. No. It was all about grab the kids, maybe with one or two of the parents, between grandstand and jukebox jury. It was a bridge, and that was the tactic. And now, of course, they've turned that bridge 60 years later into an exercise in teaching ideology. And I'm sorry, but if you're going to, kids aren't stupid.
It's why Doctor Who was made in the drama department, wasn't it, and not the children's department.
But kids are, come on, kids are not stupid. If you say to the kids, or it's obvious that you're throwing a lecture at them, they switch right off. If you show them a story, if you take them on a journey and there's a message in there, you might make them think. That's the best you can do. But all this nonsense, they're doing it in such a clunky, pathetic way that they're actually ruining the show, and they're ruining their own message. So yes, people think they've won the show, and then you get crazy arguments like this. So, Shooty Gatwa, I feel like anyone that has a problem with someone who's not a straight white man playing this character, Doctor Who, you're not really truly a fan of the show. You've not been watching.
But that's not the point. We've got no problem with the fact that the actor isn't a straight white man. We've got a problem with the Doctor being not portrayed as the Doctor.
Yes.
I mean, you could have... I mean, what's his face? Patrick Stewart's best mate, Ian McKellen. He's gay. He could play the Doctor, or like an older version of the Doctor. And I've always said that I wanted Danny John Jules from the Red Dwarf, who played the Cat, to play the Doctor. We don't care about those kinds of things. We want the actor to actually professionally act and play the Doctor. We don't want all this.
They're conflating the two things. The gay issue is separate to the story and the character. And
yes, that's what I mean. That is what I mean. It's
just a conflation. And then, of course, RTZ said the doctors were never exactly the straightest men. And you just start to think, this is like, it's like saying it was never as you saw it. It was never as you saw it. 2 and 2
It wasn't that they went. I mean, they weren't exactly the straightest men, because they weren't portrayed to have or to be straight. They were just the Doctor. It was never a sexual character.
They weren't portrayed.
The most you got a sexual character in classic Who was in the Aztecs, when that woman was flirting with the Doctor and got quite friendly with her.
Funny how we both keep going back to the Aztecs. It's almost
there's a running theme there, isn't there?
Well, look, New Who has just got so many problems with it. I remember when I was doing some research and I saw the beginning of one of the older New Who episodes with Matt Smith, and he was up, was it Elizabeth I's skirt?
Yeah.
Hello? I mean, this is absolute madness. These people are preaching to me, and they've written into scripts stuff that's out of order, disrespectful, sexual titillation. They are preaching to us about toxic masculinity, yet they've played around it.
When we say straw man arguments, because Shooty just thinks that we're all thinking a black man could never. He thinks we're saying a black man is incapable of playing the Doctor. No, If he actually was here, I would say to him, no, Shooty, it's not to do with you. It's just that some fans, not even me, I'm happy with a Black Doctor, but some fans feel that you, well, not feel, some fans feel very confident to know that this show is nothing like what they used to remember it being. You aren't particularly written like the Doctor. You don't particularly portray and act like the Doctor. You appear to be nothing like the Doctor. Again, it's nothing to do. It's no one looking at you shooting saying, "Well, yeah, but you're gay, aren't you?" And oh yeah, but you're black, aren't you? It's nothing to do with that. It's because people don't recognize you as the Doctor, and they don't recognize the show as being what it once was.
And as Peter Harrington, my Doctor Who twin, this era in years to come will be an example of how to destroy a beloved series through poor choices in time. It must be deliberate or total blindness. I do get your point, Peter. There's a point I'm feeling that they don't care what Doctor Who looks like as long as they've put their message in. And their message is strong. I mean, my slides carry on. I mean, Shooty Gatwa talking about the blame on immigrants, black and brown people, trans people. Where's all this coming from? It's a Doctor Who program. Science fiction fans tend to be very tolerant and diverse. What's he having a go at?
It's a bit like when your partner just like blows up on you, like, whoa,
Yeah.
where's all this coming from? What's happened?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like that. You've gone for the best part of 50 years with a white male character, white, typically male, white male straight actor. And then when you suddenly change that, you can't be offended when people suddenly are like, whoa, that's a bit too soon. People are going to have struggled. People don't like change, really, particularly me. So, but when you set your stall out and then push a certain way to such an extreme, and then turn it back and say, "Oh no, you've got some insecurities," like Jodie said. No, maybe it was you actually. Maybe because again, I like saying this a lot. For every finger that points at you, there's 4 fingers pointing back at you. So for all this blaming me, maybe you want to take a look at yourself because you were the one that went out your way to make a big deal about this.
And
And like you say, for all this talk about. It's just like they're blowing up at you, like a relationship.
Well, just like in Vanity Fair last year. Okay, he's making a political argument about how black people are treated. The trouble is, he's just been quoted by Varada Sethu saying, it'll pee everybody off that there's 2 black and brown people in the TARDIS. And he talks about we in the industry can't allow backsliding. Unfortunately, we will see many things as trends and as fashions. We're human and we're here to stay. And our stories and our voices deserve to be heard. That might have merit. But if you start doing that when you get a good job, the backsliding might be because of a backlash. And I just think once you've got the job, just make the most of it, make it worthy, make it credible, make you the best Doctor. And push RTD to write the best scripts, but don't start saying, "Now I've got it. It'll make everybody else feel triggered, and I don't give a damn." And of course,
it's a bit like if a football team hires a new manager and they lose like 2 or 3 games on the spin, and then he tells the fans to F off. He's lost it at that point, hasn't he? He's lost the fans. He's lost the dressing room.
You see, and what I'm trying to say is when he says, it'll pee people off, you know who they're talking about. In the same Vanity Fair article, he was asked, "This is the age of Brexit and MAGA. Was there a racist and homophobic backlash?" And he says, "I wouldn't be the only black lead that's taken over a sci-fi franchise that would have received this sort of treatment." And you think, do you know what? I just think these people need an agent right next to them who watches what they say. But I actually think they feel as though they've got the power and they're invulnerable and they can say this stuff.
Because who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop him? Who's going to be brave enough to say no? We're not putting that out. Who's going to be brave enough to stand up to Russell? Who, if you dare, might be the last thing you do. Ooh.
Yeah. Now you see, we've got a few people here. Brian says, aside from Susan and the Aztecs, the Doctor was portrayed as asexual. In City of Death, you're a beautiful woman, probably. Go back to basics, he suggests. Demorpin, If he were younger, I'd be more inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. But he's in his 30s. I mean, and Varada Sethu is 36. They're not stupid. Kind of cool. People are being too polite. Shooty Gatwa is not playing the Doctor. RTD isn't writing the Doctor. This isn't Doctor Who. Kind of cool.
I completely agree with that.
What about you, Cinnamon? The irony is we are the Bigenerates or the Trigenerates today. And it's to say we've got Doctor Who fans on a topic of different generations. And I thought every week, didn't we, Cinnamon, there'd be argument. There never is, because they've united fandom against them.
It is hard. It is hard to find. I mean, I was really pleased when we were discussing. Again, we didn't get around to it too much because obviously we were limited on time. But I was so happy to finally find some sort of subject when we discussing like the future of Who and the future of whether continuity would matter in a new reboot and whether it's important or whether we should focus on making a good quality product. It is hard to find things we disagree with because again. They make it so easy, don't they? They make it so easy. They don't particularly make it difficult. And again, when they say things like that, I mean, I mentioned before, I watch Rose. Now, is Rose the best episode of all time? No, but it does its job. It's a very, very good, decent opener to bring him back to the show again.
2005 Rose.
Yeah, it has some silly moments that you might cringe a little bit. I watched it.
I really liked
I watched it, and I come away from it thinking, "Wow, it's better than what I remember." Because yeah, there are silly sort of moments like the burping bin and things like that, but the story was treated with respect, and it was treat the audience with respect. And you watched it, and yeah, it's a fairly simple, easy villain to introduce with the Autons, and it treats again the whole.
I thought using the Millennium Ferris wheel as this big like transmitter that was hidden was amazing. Like really,
yeah.
No, I loved it. I really loved it.
I mean,
it seemed more serious than treated with respect than what we're getting now. It just seemed everything's just too light and everything's just frothy and everything's a joke and everything's all light and sweet. Whereas back then, it was just groundbreaking and it was serious, but not too serious.
I think we can disagree on that era of New Who. I mean, I liked some of the Chris Eccleston stories and that, but that Millennium Eye, when you really look at that as a plot device, it's because he imposed 45-minute stories and it had to have a rush job. And yes, Doctor Who and Classic Who has always had that kind of neat little trick that actually makes no real sense. But let's not forgive it for what it is. I mean, basically, it was like it was just kind of an antenna, and it makes no sense. Just like in Stolen Earth, it made no sense that if everybody, I mean that nonsense about if everybody uses their mobile phone at the same time. And you know, I love Stolen Earth, but that was all hocus pocus. We always allowed a bit of leeway as Doctor Who fans. I couldn't cope with in Stolen Earth, or should I say the episode after, you know, when the Doctor's TARDIS towed the Earth back. I mean, that went into Marvel Universe silliness, that. You know, like when Superman reversed time when he went the other way. Yeah, all right. You know.
Yeah, I'll grant you that one. And did they even quite explain how the TARDIS was able to do that? Because when you mentioned about the phones all being used at the same time, and I mean, it was loosely explained, but they've tried it a few times. They did it with Prisoner Zero. Do you remember? Again, that was another instance where if everyone thinks about 0, 0, 0 at the same time, and all the clocks turn to 0, that's going to let the attraction know that it's here. It's things like that. I mean, I suppose when you think about it in a critical way and you look back, okay, does that really work? But at the time when you're watching it, it isn't that big of a deal. But when you look back and you count all them up and you you think, ooh, maybe, ooh.
I mean, it is just a story at the end of the day. It is just science fiction. Yeah. But like at the time, right, I really love, like, bearing in mind I had never watched the classic series back in 2005. Well, it was actually 2006 that I was watching it, but the 2005 series, the scene where where 9 materializes the TARDIS around Rose in the Dalek ship.
Yeah.
Like, I understand now, like, that's ridiculous in the lore, but at the time it was just like, wow, that was amazing.
It was well written regarding it was space opera, and RTD can do space opera well. And I know when I was at school in the staff room, middle-aged teachers who weren't into Doctor Who said that moment when he said, "Rose, I'm going to come and get you," and then that moment when he lands and everything. But as a Doctor Who fan, I did think, oh, this is the TARDIS that would never behaved suddenly was behaving perfectly. I mean, it didn't squash her, did it? It just happened to just materialize around it. I'm sorry.
The TARDIS that he can't
I can imagine it doing that, though, in fairness. I mean, yeah, okay, he never used to be able to control it, but, you know, you'd think after
I guess
10 incarnations, you'd be able to get an idea
on in the Moffat era, like the TARDIS is actually its own person. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it does explain that.
It's just that how come in all the 60 years when the TARDIS landed and materialized in various places, you didn't have a tree in the corner? The only time that kind of happened was Frontiers, you know, when it kind of broke down. But that was because it was breaking down, apparently. I tell you what, the writers need to stop playing with the concept of the TARDIS, because once it's broken, it's broken. I wouldn't drive that anywhere without an MOT. Honestly, it's been bust to pieces. I mean, honestly, would you drive that? It's not roadworthy, the TARDIS. The amount of times it's been bashed, burned.
I mean, there comes a point, doesn't there, when it gets just too expensive to fix. At that point, you may as well just get a new one. But yeah, things like it's I think it's kind of established in law that, you know, TARDISes are grown; they're not built.
Cinnamon. I'm going to point out, law has been changed. Do you know what you need? A sledgehammer.
Yeah. What's law? What canon? What?
Yeah. All you need now is a magic hammer, and you can create a new TARDIS. We've gone that stupid.
Another thing, isn't it funny how, like, just very, very, very recently, Russell has in his promotion of season 2, he's been saying that, oh, there's going to be new words about Gallifrey in season 2. There's going to be new words that are going to enter fan lore. So it's very funny, isn't it, how you pick and choose when lore is important and when it isn't, when it suits you, Russell. You don't respect any of the other lore, but when there's something that you want to put in it, it's important then.
He also said he's going to there's going to be a joke on Mavity. So we're going to revisit Mavity. Hey, that's all you needed, wasn't it, everybody, to cheer you up? So you can see this is the season 2 promotion. Get her home. What a brilliant, outstanding plot line that is. Wow. How long did that take? So we're on countdown. I can see from this, we're all so excited and fired up. But we've been arguing today that Varada Sethu, as you know, said, you know, we were laughing at how we might have peed people off, you know, that the Doctor Who is too woke and all the rest of it. And a lot of people in the thread, including you two lads, have just been saying, but the ratings are dead. It's not about whether it's woke or not in the end. It's about it's not entertaining. It's got no logic within its own nonsense. It's lost itself. We've killed the spirit of it. This is no good. And that is the problem.
Do you remember that? Remember that old idea he was talking about before, when he said, "Yeah, the ratings overall aren't quite what you'd like." He even admitted that to some degree, but he was very quick to emphasize, "Oh, well, it's doing well with the under 35s and all that." Well, now we've seen that isn't quite the case. So now what's your argument?
Exactly. So we either look forward to what's on the left, or good old thinking had his own version of what's coming up on the right. So it is constantly depressing. But we've actually spent 2 hours as Doctor Who fans, and actually not on the content as usual, because they don't want us to look at the content, because they know the content, like in Stolen Earth and various other things, doesn't quite hold water. But thanks a lot, Cinnamon. We will meet again, I know. But there you go. That we had our discussion on Varada Sethu's crazy comments. Thank you again, James.
Hello. Sorry, the back fell off of my chair again. I've literally just fixed it.
Well, There you go. Now you just have to fix the TARDIS and the program and the plot
Yeah.
and the
I
character.
was just going to say, is it as broken as the TARDIS, if not more?
So everybody in the
you know
thread.
what? When I get once we're done, I'm just gonna lose the chair and readjust my camera and stand up for streams because no, the chair is just too much of a pain.
Just throw everything at the kitchen, or just throw your chair and the kitchen sink at the wall. It's what Russell does, so it's shouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. Thank you. A very pleasant 2 hours. It's very triggering 2 hours, but I think they know what they're doing. We'll be back.
Yeah, I'm drained.
Yeah, we'll be back with the detox at midday this week because, of course, our clocks went forward, so I don't have to go as crazy. And then that was the week that was woke on the night time and our Sunday slogathon. So everybody, thanks for your support. Just make sure you've subscribed and given us a like. Away, what's going on? Thank you, James, again. Thank you, Cinnamon. Off we go. Good night.